Okay, what do I wear? Glasses? No glasses. Glasses? No glasses. Glasses. I think I need to see. Headphones or AirPods? Why did I not decide this sooner? I should not have left it this last minute. Right, gotta make sure they're connected. Volume is up.
Hello there.
Hi.
Hi there, Amy. The good news is it sounds like you can see and hear us okay. Welcome
Mhm.
to your foundation year interview. I believe this is your first interview of the day, so thanks very much
Yeah.
for joining us. Before we get going, we're just going to do some introductions. So my name is Alex Price, and I'm the course director for the foundation year here at Cambridge. I'm joined today by my colleague Sandy.
Hi there. My name's Sandy. I'm one of the admissions tutors at Homerton College, as well as the Director of Studies for the foundation year at Homerton College.
Okay, they seem nice and normal?
We've got a few little bits of admin to get through, but the structure of the interview is that we're going to get through some little bits of admin, then we're going to show you an object, ask you some questions about it, and then at the end of the interview, you'll have some time for questions for us if you have any. The first bit of admin that we have is, do you have any ID so that we can prove that you are who you say you are?
I do. I have my driving license.
Excellent. If you could just hold that up to the camera so that we can get a close look.
Nice and close. Perfect.
Yep, excellent.
Thank you.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for that. And also just to tell you a little bit about what might happen if we have any tech failures. So at the minute, this connection looks pretty stable. Things seem to be going pretty well. But if there are any technical problems, please don't hesitate to let us know. We don't want any technical issues to impact our assessment of you and kind of disadvantage you in any way. So if anything goes wrong, just let us know so that we can kind of perhaps reschedule the interview or see if there's a kind of solution that we can come up with. If there was a problem our end as well, please don't worry. We would reschedule the interview for another time and it wouldn't affect our assessment of you in any way. I also have to ask a couple of other quick questions. Can you just confirm that you're alone and you don't have anyone else in the room with you?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And can I also ask you to confirm that you're not recording this interview in any way?
No.
Brilliant. Excellent. Also, just to make you aware that as we're interviewing you, you may see us making some notes, you might see us typing. We see lots of candidates and we want to make sure that we give you credit for your ideas. So if you see us taking any notes during the interview, don't worry about that at all. That's perfectly normal and you can't read anything into it either way. Without further ado, are you ready to get started?
I am.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, I'm going to hand over to Sandy, who's going to share his screen and show you an object.
Fantastic. So first things first, we're not expecting you to know anything about this object you're about to see. It's probably something that you have never seen before in your life. So please don't be worried about that. You can apply any knowledge you've got into our discussion about it, but we're not expecting you to know anything at all. We want to see how you reason through things with something brand new, basically. So first question that I've got for you is going to be the easiest question of this entire interview, but probably the most important. Can you see the object on your screen?
I can.
Fantastic. So let's start really simply, and it is as simple as it sounds. Firstly, just tell me what you can see here. Start describing what it is you can see. We don't need to conjecture too much about it just yet, but just starting with the basics. What do you think we've got here?
It looks like a teapot to me.
Okay.
It seems to have quite a delicate design towards the bottom from what I can see. I think it looks like it might be made of clay, perhaps. And
what gives you that impression?
Probably the color of it. It could possibly be painted, but I know clay has a very brown color and texture normally. And I know that's
saying something like copper, which might be a similar color.
That's also a possibility. It's difficult to tell because I can't see it in person. I think I'm just going off texture and color from what I can see so far.
I wonder what they're writing in their notes. I think this has been going okay so far, though. I just need to keep on going.
I'll tell you that you're right, by the way. But
okay, that's good to know. I can see quite ornate patterning on the top of the lid as well as near the brim, as well as the handle. And I would probably venture to guess that's handcrafted and done.
Why would you say handcrafted?
Probably because you don't see teapots like that today. Normally they're made of glass or some other material, which makes me think that it's possibly a bit more older than the 21st century. And the patterning as well.
So if you had to, take a guess about where this object originated from, what would you say? Again, not expecting you to know it, so don't worry, we're not expecting a right answer, but I'd be interested in your reasoning as to why you think what you do.
Possibly Egypt. I know that a lot of natural kind of resources were utilized there. I think it would probably be more easy if I was given kind of a time date. I think that's probably a key thing, because I know human history have discussed various materials were used in different periods and in different areas, so it would depend on that, I think. But if I had to guess, I would probably say Egyptian, possibly.
Should I have said that? What if it's wrong? It's fine if I'm wrong. They did say I don't need specialist knowledge on the subject to answer the question. And, well, I did explain my thinking process.
I think Africa's pretty rich in natural resources, so that would kind of be my go-to. I know in China they had a lot of porcelain and things like that. That would probably be my answer.
Okay. So let me give you a little bit more information about this. I think you picked this apart nicely. Let's give you a little bit more information, see if you can, what you can tell given that. So this is actually a coffee pot, not a teapot.
Okay.
That is made out of sort of red earthenware material. So, like clay, like porcelain. You identified the design on the front, and that's cherry blossom. So quite a Japanese style of design.
Yes.
You've also got sort of at the bottom of the spout a sort of fish head design, which is actually quite Chinese.
Right. Okay.
With that knowledge in mind, see if we can pick this apart a little bit more. Think about how this object might have come to be, where and when it might be from, what its purpose might be.
So I would probably guess that it's not the 21st century if we go by process of elimination, purely because I know glass and other materials came to be around that period. It doesn't look 20th century either. It looks a bit more closer to the early modern period, I would say. If I had to...
We might say, even though we've got glass teapots now, people still do make clay teapots and coffee pots. They still do, use the old materials. And, this might not be something that I go and buy off Amazon for 15 quid, but it might be something that's still handmade, hand-produced in the sort of traditional style, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So it could be this is something that's being made, using traditional methods, but in modern times, right? Not just something I bought off Amazon for 20 quid, but it could be an artisan who's working with those traditional materials rather than the modern ones and doing things in an older style, right?
That's true. I know that things that are made kind of in more traditional ways are still popular amongst people. I mean, vintage and things like that are always still used, albeit by lesser people, I would say, like in a smaller quantity.
So let's come back to this issue of the design and the designs we're seeing on it. We've got a Japanese design on there and a Chinese design.
Yeah.
So how do you think that might have come to be?
It's possible that a lot of cultural influences are impacted by cultures that come together in one place. So I know that a lot of kind of major cities and things like that, not even just in the 21st century, but previously and in previous centuries as well, there's been large patterns of migrations where you might get several people of different ethnicities in one area. And because of the way art is in nature, people tend to kind of be inspired by different things, including different cultures.
I think you're onto something here. I think it's a really key idea we can focus on, because that inspiration from different cultures and these ideas here might give us an idea of where and when this has come from. Do you think it's likely that someone in China or Japan would have been using some of the influences from the other culture in this, or is this more likely to come from somewhere else that's taking on the ideas of both of these cultures?
I think one thing that's interesting to me is there's no kind of painting in specific color. I know that from other art I've seen cherry blossoms tend to be a bit pink or red in color, and it's interesting that hasn't been painted over. And I think it's very also interesting that the design doesn't cover the entire body. I think it's possible that perhaps someone Western or someone who isn't Chinese or Japanese themselves could have made this, having seen other art and been inspired by it.
Does the fact that this is a coffee pot rather than a teapot play into that?
Possibly. I mean, coffee and tea are widely consumed everywhere, so I think it's very difficult to pinpoint kind of a population that would drink it more than the other. Because I know that tea was popular in China in various centuries, as well as in India and Britain as well, because of colonization. So it's very difficult to geographically pinpoint necessarily where exactly.
Let's give you a little bit more information then. So this is actually from the 19th century, so the 1800s onwards, and it was in fact made in Germany.
Okay.
So it is a German-made coffee pot incorporating designs from both traditional Chinese and traditional Japanese pottery within it. Does that change how you do this in any way?
Possibly. It could tell us a little bit about how cultural influences traveled from the east to the west. So from it'd be China and Japan to Germany. It could tell us about kind of cultural influences, art genres, and things like that, as well as perhaps what was in demand in Germany. Because I remember I've done a bit of just a book I read that mentioned that in the 18th and 17th centuries in England, it was popular to have like collector's items from abroad in various other countries like China, and it was fashionable to kind of have them as trinkets in England. So it could perhaps tell us about what was popular in style then amongst the public.
Why might things like that be popular, bringing in influences from other cultures?
Could you repeat the question, sorry?
So why do you think things like that might have been popular or fashionable, these items that had, elements drawn from different cultures?
Possibly because it was foreign and different, and because it was different, it would be deemed exotic, perhaps, or kind of like a symbol to have things from another culture.
Makes me wonder if it's similar to the rise of K-pop or something today, right? We still have that fascination with things that are coming from other cultures.
Yeah, I think
our own.
I would agree. I've listened to a bit of K-pop, and I know a lot of people that are interested in the genre. And what's interesting about that is it's become like a real soft power and import and export for South Korea, and it's driven like tourism into South Korea. So it's definitely like a cultural export that has kind of been incredibly profitable and made people interested in Korean culture in a way that they might not have come across otherwise.
Wow, that was a pretty good point. I didn't think K-pop would come up in my interview.
Yeah, as interesting as K-pop is, and I'm sure we could have a long and involved discussion about just that. Bringing us back to this object in front of us here. So you've talked a little bit about the idea of this maybe being something sort of a collector's item, and you've talked about it having an ornate pattern. But on the other hand, you've also noted that it hasn't got any kind of color on it. It's not painted in any way. What do you think that tells you about the kind of people that would have had this item? Who would be using it and how would they be using it?
I think we could tell what kind of person would use it based on what the price point is. For example, if it was incredibly expensive, I would assume that any incredibly elite people could afford to use it and own it. Whereas if it was kind of quite cheap or relatively cheap, then it might be more mainstream. I think given that it's not painted, I would say that it's primarily used like for functional reasons rather than just aesthetic or display reasons. Like I know quite a lot of people buy fancy china and things like that these days and put them kind of in like glass cabinets for display rather than actually using them. So I think the fact that it isn't kind of incredibly colorful necessarily might indicate that it's more used for functional reasons rather than just for display.
What about the condition of the object?
Could you repeat that, sorry?
So yeah, what about the condition of the object? Does that tell us anything potentially, or give us some additional thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, I didn't initially consider that, but now that I think about it, it doesn't look incredibly worn in any way. It looks incredibly well preserved. I can't see any kind of marks or discoloration necessarily, so perhaps it might not have been used very regularly.
And as a functional object, you talked about it being something that would be used. It is quite ornate to be a functional object. To be a functional coffee pot, it doesn't need, quite so many swirls on the handle or the fish head on the spout. That all does seem quite ornamental. Does that maybe suggest something about the way that this was used?
Possibly, yes. It's incredibly difficult to tell without any kind of background as to the provenance of the source. But I think going back earlier to what I said before, like the condition doesn't look warm, which indicates that it wasn't perhaps used, or I'm not sure how long coffee pots last before they kind of stop working necessarily, or become damaged in some way. But it's incredibly difficult to tell. It does look incredibly well preserved though, so I would assume that it's currently an artifact in a museum of some kind, perhaps.
Excellent. Well, I would say I think that this item does look very well preserved, and I think it could probably still serve a mean cup of coffee if it needed to. You might be surprised to hear, though, that that does sort of bring us towards the end of our time together. I know these things go very quickly when you're in them, or perhaps it's felt very long. I don't know, but for us, it's certainly gone very quickly. Before we close off this interview, I wondered if you had any questions for us. Don't feel that you have to ask us anything, but we do have a couple of moments if you do.
When will I hear back?
You'll hear back. So the foundation year interviews, we need a couple of weeks. Obviously, we've got Easter to factor into the equation as well. So you should hear back sort of towards the end of April or early May. And if you check our website, you can find out exactly when the date is.
Perfect. I don't have any other questions. Thank you.
Brilliant, excellent. Well, it's been lovely to meet you, Amy, and yeah, we'll be in touch in a couple of weeks' time. So thanks very much for your time today, and good luck for your second interview.
Thanks
you. For joining us, Amy.
Some of those questions were really hard, but I think I did okay. I gave all of them a shot, so fingers crossed. There's no point worrying about it now. There's nothing more I can do.